Part 2 movies. They're a mess. Today we saw one that wasn't. 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Connor, what's the plot of The Bone Temple?
28 years later, The Bone Temple is kind of a part 2, but it's more of like a sequel in a trilogy kind of way. It's kind of established like a part 2, but it's its own unique movie that requires context of the first movie. I consider it more Empire Strikes Back than Twilight 3 Part 2, Eclipse Part 2, or New Breaking Dawn or whatever. The only Twilight movie I ever saw was the Part 2 of the third one, because I got pranked at the Cheapo Records once and somebody threw it in my basket. And then I bought it, and then I decided I was going to watch it because I watch all of my movies. And I also thought it would be a unique thought experiment because I have never seen a Twilight movie. Totally irrelevant to this movie, which has a plot, which I will state now. Spike from the first movie, he's the kid. He has gotten lost, than he was in the first movie. And he wound up being found by a strange gang of hoodlums. And these hoodlums are the devil worshippers, the Jimmies. It's 8 Jimmies. And Spike is forced to fight to the death. And after getting lucky and killing one of the Jimmies in a fight to the death, he ends up becoming the newest Jimmy to join the Jimmy gang. And they torture a family, which ends up leading to some shenanigans with the Jimmies, which ends up leading them on a journey to find Ray Fiennes, or Ian, Dr. Ian, who was the Bone Temple man from the first movie, and hence the title. And what he's been up to is he's been taking morphine with Samson, the ginormous zombie man. Who is just ass naked the entire movie. And at first he heals the zombie, and then they just start tripping on morphine a whole bunch. and him and the zombie get addicted to morphine, and then he decides to try friends. He becomes friends with them, and he's trying to teach the zombie English. And eventually he's like, well, I'm going to have to euthanize this zombie. But before he does, the zombie miraculously starts speaking English and becomes his friend. And then it cures his zombie brain, so he becomes like a cognitive person again, who also happens to be a zombie. Anyhow, the plots converge when the Jimmies wind up finding Dr. Ian. And the main Jimmy, who's just a fraud, decides to convince the other Jimmies that Ian is Satan. And, of course, you have Spike and Ian who know each other. Shenanigans ensue. I don't want to spoil anything. But shit happens at the Bone Temple. And it's a weird movie. So, Aiden, what did you think of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple?
I loved The Bone Temple. The first movie was already very weird. In a good way. And this one's even weirder. I mean, Ray Fiennes is probably the closest character to, I don't know if I'd call him a protagonist. I mean, I guess Spike kind of has like a protagonist journey where he's held captive by the Jimmies and works to escape their grasp, but Ray Fiennes is probably the most central character.
I mean, Spike was the protagonist of the first movie, and this movie's like an aside for Dr. Ian, as Spike is a piece on the chessboard who's kind of moved from his arc in the first movie to whatever's going to be happening in the third movie. Spoiler alert, the kid lives, but he's, obviously the protagonist, so it's not that much of a surprise, but...
Yeah, this is a weird side story. A good part of it is Ray Fiennes befriending the alpha zombie who he's named Samson, and they hang out and do drugs and listen to music to each other until Samson gets so high he becomes a human again. It's very weird. It's not at all the kind of movie you would expect, even coming off of the first one, which also wasn't really the kind of movie you'd expect. And there's a lot of stuff with Spike and the Jimmies that's interesting too, but the Ray Fiennes stuff is so weird and he's so good in the movie. I was fucking entranced. It's really impressive, especially since this is directed by the woman who directed The Marvels 2, whatever the fuck that movie was called.
The Marvels, just The Marvels.
Yeah.
An abysmal film.
Abysmal film.
The Marvels I gave a half star on Letterboxd because it was just blatantly unfinished. That might have been slightly harsh because I think some of the performances were okay, but it was incomprehensible because it was based on a bunch of Disney Plus shows I'd never seen and just was a bunch of shit basically and made no sense.
But
so to see the turnaround to a near perfect weird zombie movie. I will also mention, to your point, you're like 28 years later isn't a traditional zombie movie for sure. It is much, much, much more of a traditional zombie movie than whatever the fuck this was.
Yeah, I mean, the zombies are... I mean, outside of Samson, the zombies are basically a non-factor. Like, the main antagonists are a bunch of, like, football hooligan type British chavs who are also, like, edgy 80s style Satan worship kids. Outside of Samson, the zombies are effectively a non-factor. I don't think a zombie kills a single person in this entire movie. No, there's one random guy who gets killed by a zombie. Like,
no, he gets killed by Samson.
Does he?
Yep.
Oh, he does.
Samson rips his head off.
Yeah.
It's like the opening shot, and that's like I
was thinking of the other guy when those two people arrive back to their house to find...
Okay.
That
was some random zombie.
There's 2 zombie kills, but the primary zombie focus is on
Samson. Samson tripping on morphine.
Samson going on a morphine trip until he becomes a person again. Movie's just as gorgeous as the first. Everyone is incredible in it, especially Ray Fiennes, who's just a one-man show for a lot of this, because Samson does eventually speak, but not very much. So Ray Fiennes is he's just there by himself with a man who grunts and looks dazed out of his mind. It's one of the most unique things I've seen in a long time, and I was very, very impressed. And I'm looking forward to the third one. Connor, what'd you think of the Bone Temple?
I thought the Bone Temple was fantastic. The first movie was much more of a traditional zombie movie. There was things like it's just a totally different movie. Still very good.
Yeah.
But the first movie had a lot about like Aaron Taylor Johnson and his wife are having marriage troubles because his wife is going crazy in the zombie apocalypse. There's like this commune, like basically like this like little communist government built in this little island in the sea where everybody... it's more like hunting and gathering. It's a very like early human culture. I think calling it communist technically is probably a bit of a overcomplication. But it's a very different movie. That was like a coming of age for Spike.
Yeah.
At the end of that movie, Spike gets lost basically. He runs out on his own. He decides his dad's a piece of shit. His mom has died. Ray Fiennes has made her into a skeleton and put her on his tree of skeletons, and he's trying to strike it on his own, and then he's lost and he's found by these British hooligans. And he's very much a secondary character. He's along for the ride. He moves from like protagonist to... It's almost like the main Jimmy and Ray Fiennes have like these two separate but parallel stories, and Spike is kind of just there as a puzzle, as a piece on the chessboard moving into position for the third movie, which I would assume is probably going to go slightly back into the more. I'm sure it'll still. Well, I'm sure it'll still be some weird shit.
Oh, I'm
There's
sure.
no way it's not, but I think that'll be more of the traditional. I think it'll be more of the follow up. I talk a lot about lore novels on this channel, and this is kind of a lore movie in a lot of ways. Like, there are some very crucial plot points to the trilogy, but it doesn't really push the primary Spike story so much as it expands on, like, it almost feels like a spin-off, expanding on Ray Fiennes' Ian, who more or less loses his relevance at the end of the first movie. The only reason he comes back into play is because he's got this parallel story with Samson.
Yep.
And kind of him reconciling with life, as you have Jimmy, who's this crazy man who causes a lot of death and destruction and so on. So it's really like it's more of a spin-off about a bunch of like these characters that showed up for 15 seconds at the end of the first movie, and Ray Fiennes comes back.
Weirdos.
I think Spike is gonna. Well, obviously we know. I'm not gonna spoil the ending. It sets up an intriguing plot line that is totally different from the first and the third movie, and perhaps is going to. There's a lot of setups. I don't know where exactly it's gonna go. I don't think it's super predictable, but there's some interesting notions implied with like Samson's found humanity. Is that something they're going to try to replicate? There's some new characters that are introduced that seem like an interesting angle, very different from the angle we saw with the Jimmies. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it's weird because I wouldn't consider this movie like a part 2, and perhaps even considering it the second part of a trilogy isn't entirely apt. It's like another spin-off in the universe that slightly moves the main plot. But you could probably really skip the first movie so long as you understand the context that Ray Fiennes is a weird man who has a temple of bones and tries to find a weird way in this hellish apocalypse to like reconcile with death and like trying to understand the humanity of zombies.
Yeah.
Which is pretty easy to see pretty quickly as he starts drugging a giant zombie into becoming his trip buddy. It's fucking weird. Oh. It's really not a traditional zombie movie. Doesn't really feel like it definitely feels like some sort of odd aside within. It feels like something where they had an idea for the first and the third movie, and then they're like, we gotta do more shit with Ray Fiennes. So they made the ending for the first movie to kind of put Spike in place so they could call it a trilogy, but it more or less feels like a spin-off that's like almost a side story within what's happening to the main Spike character in 28 years later, because I feel like Spike is like the definitive protagonist of the first movie. We follow him. It's about him trying to understand his relationship with his mother and father and this kind of surrogate father figure through Ian, which interestingly evil Jimmy sort of starts seeing Ian as a surrogate father figure. I guess so does Samson in a way. Father figure, trip buddy, birthing him back to his humanity through the power of drugs. It's weird, man.
It's a surprisingly funny movie too. I forgot to note that, but
it's like disgustingly gory, but
you can tell from the appearance of the Jimmies that there's going to be some funny, and it is.
I'm really happy that it was good because I loved the first one, but I was like, is this going to be like annoyingly serialized where it's like I was like, I feel like the first 28 years later ended satisfying enough, so are they going to like resurrect the plot to find a new thing where it's more of the same, but he's traveling with these weirdos? And then I saw that it was the Candyman Captain Marvel 2 director, and like I thought Candyman was an okay movie, the 2018 Candyman she did, and the Marvels had its moments, but I was very unsure going into this But clearly Danny Boyle saw it. I couldn't imagine many other people would when the decision was made to entrust her to make this movie, because and obviously directing isn't everything. There were probably factors beyond her control working with like Marvel and stuff, but it was it was one of those really rare, brilliant moments for a director, and it's really rare that a director just makes something that's totally dog shit as their as their second movie, as a follow-up to their first movie, which was and then to basically make a strange, unique, genre-bending masterpiece. And like, how the hell did... I guess like only the clout of Danny Boyle really allowed her to do what she was doing in this movie, because there's no way she had the pull to do that. I mean,
No.
She got kicked around for the Marvels because that movie was a mess, probably not entirely by her own faults. So I'm impressed, and I'm hoping she stays the fuck away from Marvel. I mean, it's another situation. You look at like Chloe Zhao. She made The Eternals and has made like 2 movies that are, I think, one Best Picture and one's like a contender this year. I haven't seen her other movies, but it's one of those things where Marvel can have the best director in the world and just make them throw some dog shit out. So I guess it's not technically... And then you could have a dog shit director like the Russos. You have a dog shit set of directors like the Russo brothers and have them make decent, fun action movies. So you never know with them.
Yeah.
But regardless of that tangent, I was very impressed, despite some reservations with the nature of a Part 2 movie, though I wouldn't classify it as that after seeing it.
This movie definitely has a small vibe of Train Spotting 2, in the way that it's just something completely different and strange using the same characters.
Yeah.
Except that movie's more pathetic and sad.
Sometimes
intentionally.
That's the smartest way to go. I mean, you look at like... I mean, even like more famous examples, Alien and Aliens, just like switching it up.
Terminator and Terminator 3 Judgment Day.
Yes, well, that movie was very similar to the good movie, Terminator 2. But Terminator 3 didn't change much. Terminator 2 was a bit of a genre bend. So sometimes I think oftentimes it's much more rewarding to find a totally different story. But I mean, this was an entire unusual for a trilogy, and definitely a multi-part movie if you want to still consider this. That is just the monumental shift in perspective, which is something that I think really disqualifies it from being considered a multi-part movie to me. Because Spike might say 5 lines in the entire movie. He's definitely the focus of a lot of moments within the movie, but mostly he just kind of sits there and is like basically being held hostage by Jimmy and forced to become another Jimmy with the other Jimmys. Otherwise he'll just get murdered. So
he's our observer between 2 very strange people.
We're baby Jimmy, baby Spike Jimmy, forced to endure the strange wrath of Big Jimmy. It's bizarre, man, but it's very good. Dare I say better than the first, which was already, I thought, the best of the 28 etceteras later, miscellaneous measurements of time later movies. I thought it was incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to what this team puts together with the third movie. It kept me guessing. I have no idea. The nice thing is, kind of like the end of the first movie, you're like, okay, so he's gonna be with these strange hooligans, or these heroic hooligans, or are they villains? What's the deal with them? We don't know, and then we don't learn until this movie. And the ending of this movie foreshadows the third movie. And what the plot of said third movie is going to be. Are they going to make it a zombie busted action movie? Is it going to be a weird character study again? I guess we'll just have to wait until whenever the fuck and find out. So Aiden, would you recommend 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple?
Might I say, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is the best movie of 2026 so far. The only contender is Primates, so it was a low bar to jump.
It was a pretty low bar to jump. We didn't like that one that much.
But yeah,
it's
great. It's very strange. I don't know what emotion it elicited from me. It was funny and interesting. It wasn't. I don't know if I'd call it heartfelt or sad or happy, but it's fascinating. It's one of the most interesting things I've seen in a while, especially like as a part 2 to a movie that was already weird, or a sequel or
whatever
spin-off thing.
Some sort of tie-in.
It kind of dodges any sort of categorization because it's absolutely not an action movie, not a horror movie. It's kind of a
feels
religious drama if you think about it in a very broad sense.
That's a stretch.
I don't know if it is, man.
Ray Fiennes is like, I don't believe in God.
Samson is a biblical name, and it's literally about a man's rebirth.
I guess in a way.
And the forces of evil.
There is a metaphorical sense of that, and the ending kind of compares. I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending compares it to like post World War II, where the Allies helped the Axis rebuild after the war, as opposed to what happened in World War I, which was just to bankrupt everybody and laugh about it, which caused the Second World War to happen.
Yeah.
But I found that to be an interesting analogy, especially given sort of what we see with Samson in this movie, where he's sort of, in a weird way, revived into this new form of cognitive creature. So I wonder if that's going to come into play.
I sure hope it does.
If they're trying to like rebuild humanity in some form and in a more coexisting level with the zombies, but that's just a brief theory based on 2 pieces of evidence, and honestly, ain't nothing in the first movie could have had me theorize what was happening in this one.
No.
Other than weird shit, which I'm sure is going to continue in the third one.
But long story short, yes, I absolutely recommend The Bone Temple. I thought it was fantastic. Connor, would you recommend The Bone Temple?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say if 28 years later was something you skipped initially and haven't seen yet, track it down and watch it. I'm sure it's on some sort of streaming service, but, 4K discs, Prime, it's rentable. I'd consider watching that first, because I do think there is some. The first movie is a lore movie for this movie, as this movie is a lore movie for the other movie. Yep. They're 2 separate movies, 2 separate stories that happen within a linear timeline, but are only very lightly related, and both seem to have built up to the third movie, which seems to be thinking in a similar philosophical vein on how they treat this as a sequel, which I'm very excited for. So I would recommend this movie, and if you missed our video on the original movie, or you skipped that movie and haven't seen it yet, I would recommend rewinding it back, checking out the first movie. It's absolutely fantastic, and I think watching these, I think these might just be like classic zombie movies. I have almost no doubt that the third one will stick the landing, but even so, I think you could pretty much watch the first or the second in a vacuum and they would still just be fantastic movies. So even if the third one somehow absolutely sucks, which I strongly doubt, I don't think Danny Boyle really would have come back for this if it wasn't for the amazing story he had to tell. So, it's great. It's great. Great couple of movies.